Good morning and welcome to another episode of A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm BC Cloutier, President of Action for Life, and this is Father Michael Orsi. Got an interesting program today, Father.
They're all interesting, folks. Come on, be honest. And you know what reminds me, if you like this program so much, because they're so interesting and so educational, you got to, help us out financially, right, BC? How do they do that?
Throw a couple of nickels in there. actionforlife.org. And click on the donate button. We would very, very much appreciate that.
Okay.
Father, I want to talk about Amendment 4 today, Florida Amendment 4, proposed amendment to the Constitution. Mm-hmm. But first, if I may, I'd like to quote some scripture from Romans chapter 1, verses 28 to 32. And since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind and to things that should not be done. They were filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, covetousness, malice, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, craftiness. They are gossips, slanderers, God-haters, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, rebellious toward parents, foolish, faithless, heartless, ruthless. They know God's decree that those who practice such things deserve to die. Yet they not only do them, but even applaud others who practice them.
Woof! Well, that's a list of junk.
Yeah.
Junky people that do all that stuff. I think maybe some of us fall into that sometimes.
But you know what, Father? That passage really hits home when you're talking about Amendment 4. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Amendment 4, it's going to be on the ballot in November. And if approved, it would add this language to the state constitution. Except as provided in Article 10, Section 22, no law shall prohibit, penalize, delay, or restrict abortion before viability or when necessary to protect the patient's health as determined by the patient's healthcare provider.
What does that mean? You have a cold?
Exactly.
Yeah. There's a tremendous problem with this Amendment 4. The problem is that it would put us on a par with Red China and North Korea insofar as how liberal our abortion law would be. So you get an amendment to the Constitution that promotes something that, well, it would allow abortion at any stage of pregnancy. Right. Once you have that last paragraph in here, whatever the patient determines, well, could be up to birth. It could be up to birth, could be the partial birth abortion. This is a very, very dangerous concept. Of course, it's being promoted very much by Planned Parenthood. They have oodles of money, oodles of money. And
we're seeing that on TV.
Yeah. And unfortunately, whose money is it?
A lot of it is the federal government.
That's right. It's the federal government's money, and they're being supplied by the federal government. And this is propaganda. And they're also using AI. I mean, they're putting out a lot of bad information, false information, and they're using, the whole concept of women's reproductive rights.
And freedom.
Well, that's the big thing, freedom. And, let's face it, freedom is a wonderful thing. But you have to use freedom the right way. And I'm not free to do whatever I want. I'm not free to do whatever I want.
Well, here's the analogy, Father. If you're free to kill a baby in the womb, why aren't you free to kill somebody who makes you angry?
Well, I suppose
murder is murder.
Murder is murder.
And so if it's justifiable, he was talking badly about my brother-in-law, and so I shot him between the eyes. Where does it end?
Well, we can see right now that it's moving toward euthanasia.
Oh, no doubt about it.
We have 10 states that have it on the ballot this year. We see up in Canada already, euthanasia is being practiced.
It's out of control in Canada.
Yeah, and even people who are not, at the end of life, they just decide that they're too depressed to live. They can have themselves euthanized, physician-assisted suicide, or you could do it without the physician. You could have the drugs that would end your life sent to your home. But let's get back to this Amendment 4. Planned Parenthood and these pro-choice organizations are going to do everything they can to get a message out there that makes it sound like, if this is not passed, that women's lives are endangered. Also making it sound like, well, what about these cases where the life of the mother is endangered? I am told by very reliable sources that they are extremely rare cases these days when the life of the mother is endangered, okay? Or, in cases of rape or incest. These are heartbreaking issues, but this is what they're going to promote out there and make it sound like it is almost epidemic that little girls 10 years old are being raped and they have to carry the child, or that a woman is dying and she has to bring the child to birth, even though it means her own death. This is not the case. This is not the case, folks. Don't go for all the drama. Don't go for all of the doom and gloom advertising. The fact of the matter is that, at least here in Florida, we do have the heartbeat law. And the heartbeat law, although, look, I don't think it's perfect. Believe me, I wish that, people would recognize from the moment of conception till natural death that life is sacred. However, for those who are concerned about those cases, the law in Florida already makes provision for those heartbreaking cases that the Planned Parenthood crowd, the pro-choice crowd, are pushing in order to sway the vote in November toward a change it's actually a change in the Florida Constitution. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. There's another part of this, BC. When a law or an amendment like this is added to the Constitution, it really contravenes what is the real will of the people, because people are hoodwinked into believing something that is not true. When we look at the data, most people, if you ask them a question, they'll say, do you believe in a woman's right to abortion? Oh, yeah. Well, up until birth? Well, no, not up until birth. How about, viability? Well, yeah, maybe 5 months, but I don't like that either. What about 6 weeks? What about the heartbeat law? What about 15 weeks? Well, that's a little bit more. People really don't like. They're ambivalent about abortion. They really are ambivalent about abortion. At the moment, I am told, and to get this amendment passed, we need 60% of the vote.
Right.
I am told that at the moment, 54% of people are against it. At the moment, 54% are against the Fourth Amendment, or the proposed Amendment 4. However, if the messaging goes out there continually that this is for the safety of women and their reproductive rights, everybody, this is my right, I like choices, well, could that 54% move up to 60%? And, that's not too far, believe me, but 54% at the moment are supportive. That means you have 6 points to play with.
Right.
And that's not a lot. And so a lot of people who consider themselves to be purists are going after politicians. Look, the job of the politician is, well, number one, they want to stay in office. Okay.
We've talked about that.
Yeah. And number two, although a lot of politicians are not themselves, pro-choice, what they will do is to say, this is the best I can do right now. So a lot of times when people don't get everything that they want, they make the perfect get in the way of the good, and they pull the rug out from politicians who are saying, look, okay, I can go along with the heartbeat law. And they'll say, oh, no, you can't do that because you're selling out our principles. Look, folks, prudence is the better part of valor. Use your brains with this whole thing, or else you're going to lose everything.
I think also that, putting that in context, no one, go back 5 or 10 years, here in Florida, no one would have believed that we would get a 6-week heartbeat.
Right.
That they would have said, never going to happen, blah, blah, blah. Incrementally, we made things happen over time.
Right.
And there is still an opportunity to do more. But you're right, we cannot let the perfect get in the way of the good.
Yeah. And sometimes the best we can do right now, that doesn't mean we end the battle. It means that, hey, look, let's make sure that we elect people who, have a sense of the sanctity of life, people that, are willing to work along with us. But there's a big part of it depends on us, how we witness to the truth. A lot of it is a one-on-one thing where we begin to change
Hearts
minds.
and hearts.
Exactly. Yeah.
That is where the battle's going to be won, Father.
That's where it's going to be won. And look, let me tell you something, folks. It's a one-on-one thing. The churches also have to get involved. I harp on the churches all the time. The churches have to give the message out there. And sometimes the people in church, they don't like what you have to say. They don't like what I have to say. Ridiculous. But people go, I don't want to hear about abortion in church. Why not? Why not? Are you pro-choice? Are you pro a White House that touts unlimited abortion? Do you think that's an offense that's political? No, it's not political, folks. It's moral. It's a moral issue, and the pastors should speak to it. In past shows, we said, why don't people go to church? And I'll tell you why they don't go to church. A lot of times it's because they're not being fed properly. They get a Hallmark Christmas card. That's what they get. You ever watch the Hallmark station? I can't get over how vapid that program is. I mean, they say absolutely nothing. Everything is smiles. Everything is no big problem. And yet people are stuck watching it because, you know what? We don't want to have our little niche, our consciences disturbed. And a good sermon, it should bug the hell out of you. Excuse me.
We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm BC Cloutier. Father, we have kind of seen the movie that is going to play out here in Florida in November, most notably with Ohio, because Ohio, like Florida, is largely a red state. Mm-hmm. And yet they had a similar situation on the ballot last year, and the amendment passed, to the chagrin of many of us. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts is that it should never have happened in Ohio, and that it was the fault of the pro-life community. That's what I firmly believe, that they did not get the right messaging out there, and they let the pro-choice people in Ohio, they gave them the playing field. They gave them the playing field instead of saying, hey, wait a minute, we hear some of the concerns that you have, but this amendment is so radical, it will forever change our state. It will change the state. It will have an effect on the people of Ohio for years and years to come. And what's in that amendment in Ohio will also have an effect on how people think and what's going to be taught in their schools. Believe me, folks, it's going to have an effect on what's being taught in their schools. So when you can have a red state flip, and we can trace it right back to the stance on abortion, that's a signal. We have done something wrong in Ohio. We can't do that wrong thing here in Florida.
Now, why do you think it'll affect schools?
Because...
Or what's being taught in schools?
Once you have, just God forbid this passes, or whatever the law passed in Ohio, it can be taught in the schools. This is the law of the state. And therefore, in people's mind, this has always been a problem. If something is legal, people think it's right.
Right.
And it happened with Roe v. Wade. Because it's legal, people began to think it's right. And sometimes people think that the law is supreme. Well, maybe in a secular order, the Supreme Court determines what the law is, maybe. But the law of God is supreme. And the law of God has to be proclaimed. But you know what, folks? I've always told you this too. Science can be on our side. Science is not all against us. I mean, as a matter of fact, the church promotes good science. We know that indeed that there is a baby in the womb. We have that from the ultrasound. Mm-hmm. So we can use science. We can use law. Now, law has components to it. When you have good law, we have to look at custom. We have to look at tradition, and we have to look at past law. So you look at all of those things, and this is what was looked at in Alabama regarding the embryos. What is human life, and what are obligations to protecting human life? And that was an outstanding decision given by the Alabama Supreme Court. So we have to do the same thing. We just do not create new realities as society deems that the reality should be. Reality is something that's based in the wisdom of the people throughout the ages, and not just what some group of people think at a certain time in a certain place in the United States. Problem is, we talked about this before in other programs. What is AI telling us about human life, and what does the law really have to say? Most people don't know how to read the law, including some justices and jurists, because what they do is they read into the law and they do not read the law itself. Now, I'm just, for full disclosure, I'm an originalist. What did the law mean when it was enacted, number one? And I also consider myself a textualist in certain sense. When there is a statute, what does the statute say? What does that text of the statute say? And that should not be left up in the air for some law clerk to interpret that.
It's unbelievable that could even get on the ballot. But it does speak
because some jurists decided that it wasn't as nebulous as the average person would think it is nebulous. And so some jurists decided, I think it was only by a 4-3 vote on the Florida Supreme Court, that it could go on the ballot. But jurists, you were dead wrong, dead wrong.
Let me go further than that. It speaks volumes that this proposed amendment even got enough signatures to be on the ballot. I mean, that says something about the people.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, there are two parts of this. The first part is that some people don't know what the heck they signed. I cleaned up my language, all right? So you go to somebody and you have these petitions for Amendment 4, and are you for women's reproductive rights? Oh, yeah, well, do you realize that you don't have any rights here in Florida? Would you sign this? This will make sure you have your rights. Oh, sure. Believe me, half of the signatures they have, that's how they got them. Believe me, folks.
And they were paying professional signature collectors.
Yeah, they know all the scams. They're like the professional salesman. They know how to present it, and they know what is going to resonate in people's minds. You tell a woman, you have no reproductive rights now in Florida. Do you want your rights back? Sign here. Okay? Some of them that signed are genuinely believers that there's nothing wrong with abortion, and that they can abort at any time during the pregnancy, as I said, even up until a partial birth abortion. Yeah. So that's how you garner that many signatures. Plus, once again, you have the abortion lobby, including big-time Planned Parenthood, that is able to get solicitors out there to get the petitions signed. That's what happens. Let me be quite blunt with you, folks. You got the moolah, you're going to get the votes that you need. Money makes the world go round. Oh my gosh, I hate to say that, but it's money.
And Planned Parenthood has plenty of it.
And where's it coming from?
The federal government.
And who's the federal government?
Well, Joe's giving them more than ever.
Oh, Uncle Joe. He's a devout Catholic.
So he says. Ay, ay, ay.
Cardinal Gregory in Washington said, well, he's a cafeteria Catholic. He's picking and choosing what he likes. All right, well, he's picking and choosing what he likes. Then the question is he devout? Well, I suppose in his own way he's devout. I mean, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but not all the people all the time. I mean, you can't fool Father Al. I mean, I'm telling you the truthness on this show. You like that word truthness? You know where I got that word truthness?
Where?
Do you remember the old pro wrestling Jimmy Snuka?
I don't remember. I remember Haystack Calhoun.
Oh, Haystack. Well, he was a gentleman.
Killer Kowalski.
Now you're dating yourself. I'm just going back to, I think Snooker, I think he ended up in jail. I think he was a murderer. But he said, yeah, I know the truthness. That's what he was. Truthness.
Sounds like a Yogi Berra. Yeah, well, we'll beat up on Biden another time. I just, this Amendment 4, I think is very, very confusing the way it is composed.
Sure it is. And it's meant to be that way.
Right.
You think these people are stupid? They're not stupid.
And so the average person, have you read it? Have you read the amendment?
Yeah, but I don't know what it says.
So
it's so convoluted.
Do you check the yes, if you're against abortion, do you check the yes box or the no box? Do we even know?
I don't know.
I don't either.
I don't know. It's awfully confusing, and I don't know what the Florida court missed. Look, folks, I mean, I admit I'm confused a lot, but I mean, this one, I mean, even BC's confused.
Nothing new there. Except as provided in Article X, Section 20, Article 10, Section 22, no law shall prohibit, penalize, delay, or restrict abortion before viability or when necessary to protect the patient's health, as determined by the patient's healthcare provider. So, no law shall prohibit. Is that a yes or a no? I still don't know. Yes, no law shall prohibit that. I guess that means I'm pro-choice. No law shall prohibit that. I guess I'm against it. So I think it's vote no. But a lot of people are going to get that ballot, and they're not going to know what they want to vote for.
Well, that's part of the plan. It's part of the plan.
That's my
People
point.
don't know what they're voting for. You cause confusion. And I told you many times, folks, the devil thrives on confusion. The father of lies, the prince of darkness. God's light is clear. When you do something right, it should be very clear what you're doing or what you're saying. When you get to something like this, certainly the confusion that's involved here is deceptive. And you can have people voting, for this and believing that they're doing the right thing because of, first of all, how do you vote? Yes or no?
The way I read it, you vote no. If you're pro life, you vote no.
Yeah. So vote no, folks. I'm telling you, vote no, because unless you study this thing, you won't know how to vote. I mean, that's why BC explained it to me.
Like I know. How scary is that?
Yeah. So all of a sudden you have a law where people don't even really know what they voted for.
And that, let's take a break, and then we need to talk about that. We'll be right back after this.
Hi, folks. Over the weeks, you have become more and more familiar with our program, Conversations with Father Orsi. I know that you are enjoying the programs because you tell me that you do. I want you to be sure that you should never worry about missing an episode, because you can go to actionforlife.org and catch all of the episodes that we have produced over the last year. Now, also, extra added bonus, you can watch my homilies, my weekly homilies about the Sunday readings. That's also on actionforlife.org. Lastly, both of these adventures, conversations and the homilies, they cost money. And I'm going to have to ask you if you can help us out, because so many of you tell me how much you enjoy the program. Some
People tell me our Sunday wouldn't be the same. We record the program, we watch them during the week. This is an expensive enterprise, and we think it's an important way to get out the gospel message and to talk about those issues of the day that are important to us as Christians. So please go to your website, actionforlife.org. There is a button you can click for donations, and please, please be generous to us to keep this show on the air. Your Sundays will not be the same without it.
Welcome back to A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm BC Cloutier. Father, we're going to wrap it up here, but before the break, I said I had another thought, and that is that, there's a moral issue. These things are written in such a way as to confuse the voter, and that is morally wrong.
It is morally wrong. And that's why, when we legislate, it has to be clear what the law is. A law is not really applicable if people don't understand what the law is. And that's why in the very beginning of this country, law is not something that only lawyers can understand. But law is something that the average person can understand so that you can live by the law, or that if you break the law, you are going to be punished. So this is not a good amendment. It's not good legislation. The fault here is with the Florida Supreme Court. We had a 4-3 vote that this was worthy of being put on the ballot in November. It is not worthy. It does not pass the smell test for good law. Interesting thing is that the 3 women justices on the court are the ones that said it's no good.
Right.
But the 4 men said it is good. Hey guys, what's up with you guys? Don't you know the basics of law? Don't you know the basics of America, that this is a country that is supposed to be ruled by the people and our elected representatives? How can the people rule if they don't know what the law is, and how a law like this Amendment 4 can disrupt the laws of a state like Florida? Folks, be very, very careful in November. Know what the great problems are with Amendment 4. Tell your friends, advise people how to vote. Vote how?
Vote no.
No. That you vote no. Don't forget what I said, or else you're going to find yourself in mucho trouble. You're going to have your children living under something that is not just unconstitutional, but unconscionable. So, you have the power to vote. It's your government. Do the right thing.
Thank you, Father, and thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again next week, same time, same place, for a conversation with Father Orsi. I'm BC Cloutier. Have a great week, and God bless.